Hello everyone and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video on the channel. Today I'm just going to be talking a little bit about, now that I have my first year of Commander under my belt, what I want to do going into this year. So I've got a couple goals this year in mind. My main goal this year is I want to make sure I'm building some stuff that I don't have, like strategy-wise currently in my arsenal. I currently have a lot of Spellslinger based decks, and I have, I've been just recently ordered my Azusa deck, so I got a lands deck. But I'm trying to, fill out the roster with some decks that do some different things. I still heavily prefer spell slinging slash combo control as my main kind of decks, but having different kind of decks that I can play for fun, or even just if people don't want to play against my normal BS, which is normally not an issue. I don't think I've ever had anyone really complain, but it's just nice to have variety. It also helps you learn about cards that you never thought of or weren't thinking of. So this year my goal is to A, not make as many decks, but B, I want to try to put together decks that do things a little bit different than my current roster. My lands deck that I just finished putting together probably being the I'm just waiting on some pieces in the mail. Being quite a adventure and getting it working. I've been workshopping this deck for about a year, and what's funny is I've been workshopping this deck for a while, and they just came out with a new card that's good for it in the new set, but I already put the deck together, and I wish I would have waited another, 3 weeks, but whatever. So yeah, that's our newest deck. We also, Veyron, I talked a little bit about this in my thing, but I've probably played 15-20 games of this deck. I'll probably have a separate video on this deck and a separate deck on the Azusa decks. I'll probably do a separate video on each of my decks, actually. That way we can also talk about some of the changes that I make over time to them. But I've been really enjoying this deck. There's some cards that I already know I want to take out. I'm already seeing some issues I want to fix with the deck, but in general, I am about as happy with this deck as I could possibly be. This is so much fun. I love spell slinging, and I love that it's a stormy, almost combo deck that doesn't actually use a true combo finish, if that makes any sense. It's combo adjacent, but it's not actually a combo deck. You still got to get there with all the hard casts, so it requires quite a bit more setup and planning. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love combo decks, but it's nice to have one deck that's like, what's my deck's plan? I'm going to shoot you a million times with Gutter Snipe. That's the plan. So that's fun. We already have a couple ideas. As you can see, if you check my Moxfield page, most of my decks are hidden. The only ones that aren't are the ones I currently have built, but I tend to brew quite a lot. And we've got a couple decks that I'm considering going into this year building. I'm really excited by the new printing of the Savara Gargari Queen. This picture is really cool, and the anime one is really cool, so there's a pretty high chance that this gets turned into a deck at some point. I do actually quite like sacrifice decks. I currently have a Teysa deck that I am very much in love with. So getting a green-black sacrifice deck with a commander that's maybe not as popular seems pretty fun. This is still very much a work in progress. Winota was also another deck I was considering looking at this year as kind of a Boros aggro deck. And this was also going to be a budget deck. So this is going to be, much smaller budget. But, yeah. This deck can do some nutty things. Winota in general, just kind of a nutty card. She do silly stuff if you let her. And the fun thing about her is a lot of her pieces and stuff are just basically draft jaff, just stuff I can get pretty easily and pretty cheap. Some of the most powerful cards, let me see if I can find it. In my testing that I've done of this deck, I've been extremely impressed with where is it? It's an uncommon creature. Where are you? This guy here, Gold Knight Commander, because you have a ton of creatures enter the battlefield off Winota triggers. So if you play this guy and then you're stacking it with some of these other people that make creatures as they come in, suddenly your board can just get absolutely ridiculous so fast. Impact Tremor is also kind of a fun card. Rising of the Day. This is actually a card I haven't seen that much of, but I would probably pick up a copy of this, to be honest with you, if you're into this kind of deck, because this is probably a card that there'll be quite a bit in a little while. Maybe not a ton, but like I would not be surprised if this one day was a $3-4 uncommon, because it's just haste and a legend buff for legendary creatures, so kind of a fun card. I do have a soft spot for like hate bears style strategies, so this is an Abzan hate bears list I've been tinkering with. Not exactly sure where I fall on it. I swap cards in and out of this deck pretty frequently until I try to find where I want to be, but right now it's like literally a whole bunch of little dumb creatures with like kind of taxing effects or some prevention effects, and then like Craterhoof and Elish Norn. There's a Witherbloom Apprentice combo in the deck right now, just as a clean win condition, because funnily enough, even though it's casting a whole bunch of little dorks, Elish Norn is often not enough to get there. I think there's also the Living Plane Elish Norn interaction in here. Yeah, this is basically a way to nuke all your opponent's lands. This is a super, not actually considering it. This card's just kind of in here because I saw it, so I wanted to chuck it in here just to see if I consider it. But it's probably, if I end up actually making the deck, that's probably not a direction I like to go. Same thing with this Collector Oof. This Collector Oof might not stick around. I tend to, and say with the Drannith Magistrate, I tend to prefer to play the effects that are less likely to get you targeted. Something like Manglehorn, where your opponent's artifact's just coming into battlefield tapped, or something like Boromir here, which prevents free spells from being cast, are less likely to get you targeted. But also with this kind of deck, I personally like to be very careful of like, just hard shutting someone out of the game. Even though they're like, you can say that's the point of a hate bears deck, and it's like, well, you're true. I still want everybody at the table to have fun. Like I was playing my Veyrin deck at a table, and someone's played a Cabal like turn 3, and like I just sat there the entire game until I found removal. Well, it didn't feel that bad, but I've definitely had games where it's like you don't want to play something like Collector Oof, for example, but only one person is playing an artifact deck, and all of a sudden it's like no one else is going to ever remove it for them. Or this is especially potent with enchantments, which some colors have trouble getting rid of. So if you play something like, where is it? Probably in the sideboard somewhere. Something like, I guess it's not in the sideboard, but something like, I've definitely had stuff like Rest in Peace played against my Glissa deck, and it's like, well, no one else ever wants to remove the thing, so I have to find one of my 3 or 4 answers for it in my deck, or else I just don't get to play the game. Like, my deck just doesn't work. So I try to avoid going super, super hard on those effects, so that's why this list, A, hasn't been made yet, but B, also, like, requires some more tinkering, because, like, this Oof and this Magistrate, for example, are both pretty sus in the current list because they're pretty hard lock pieces for certain decks. Whereas, like, again, Dauntless Dismantler, Dothy, these are more temporary effects, and the ones that just stop like ETBs, like where is she Drana and Lavala, where these good people are, these ones are just stops activated abilities. I feel like less likely to hard shut down a deck than just be like, oh, you're playing an artifact deck, well, find one of your however many standard answers they pack, and it kind of thing, so how I personally feel about it. Another deck I've been toying with here is this Killing Quill card from, I believe this is from New Capenna, and this is Assassin, Mercenary, and Rogue Tribal, so it's just all of Black's best assassins, mercenaries, and rogues, and Massacre Worm for some reason. But the payoff for her is that whenever you deal combat damage to a player, you can remove a hit counter from a card. A hit counter is a counter you put on an opponent's creature whenever they die, and exiles it too. And then you can draw a card and make 2 treasures, so it's just like a whole bunch of mercenaries and rogues. This deck is not done at all either. As you can see, the land base isn't even done. I don't think I have any instants, so like another deck I was looking at for this this year, Narset. This is I'm trying not to build a spell slinger list this year, but it's hard not to build my spell slinging ways. I actually currently don't have a token based spell slinging list, so that's kind of where this deck came in. It's like a very token based spell slinger list, using all the different instants and sorceries to make a whole bunch of token creatures and attacking. I'm not exactly sure about this deck. It's just kind of, I picked this commander up on a whim a while ago, and I just kind of haven't found a home for her yet, so that's what that deck is about. This is a mono white blink deck that I've been thinking about. This is a pretty fun card here, Preston. It's whenever a creature enters the battlefield if it wasn't cast, so if you blink a creature, you get a token. That's a white illusion. So there's a lot of ways with this deck to basically just blink stuff and re-get values off the ETBs of the thing blinking, or there's even ways to chain blink. Where is it? There's like 1 or 2 creatures that you can chain blink to get really powerful effects, not just like, there's obviously the simple stuff like draw cards, but you can do stuff like if you blink your Moonshaker Cavalry, you'll now get 2 triggers of it, so you'll even pump your team farther, which is a pretty funny effect with Preston. Inquisitor Exarch here, this here is a combo if you can blink it infinitely using some of the methods that we can do that. Besides that, it's just a lot of little dorks that draw a card whenever they enter, or blink something else when they enter. Pretty cool list. Very much my take on a mono white list. Or not my take. That's not what I meant. My kind of mono white deck's more of a control-y kind of value engine deck versus like an actual attacking creatures deck. It took everything in my soul to cut the where is it? I think I cut the Mana Tithe from this deck, and considering I'm a little bit of a troll, it took everything out of me to not just leave it in. Another deck I'm considering making this year is Queen Marchesa. These are all considerations. Like I said, I'm not necessarily going to be building all of them. But this is more of a politic-y kind of monarch deck that has some effects to kind of discourage people from attacking me, and then just a whole bunch of like random little value creatures, and stuff that just like generally either makes me annoying to attack, makes you not want to attack me, or is just like good little value creatures. And then it's actually kind of secretly a Sunforger deck. So we have Sunforger, and we have a whole bunch of stuff. Not generally as high as a lot of other Sunforger lists I've seen, but having stuff like Tybalt's Trickery and Arcbound and Deflecting Palm, Reverberate to let me copy something else, Deadly Rollick. Maybe a little bit more stuff that could be looked at. This Taunt from the Ramparts is a really fun card. Goads all creatures your opponents control, and until next turn, those creatures can't block. So your opponents are just going to crank each other to death. But yeah, I don't know. This is a deck that is pretty likely to be made this year. I do want to try to play this is like a non-spell bait. This is a kind of like the decks I currently play, but this is like a kind of a fair version of it. No, fair is the wrong word. A different angle than the way I normally approach stuff. Instead of being counter spell heavy and combo-y, it's like political, control the board, and eventually either look to get people with like deflecting palm shenanigans, or taunt from the ramparts, or making them attack each other with goad from Cardor, or just playing Gesa and slapping him with all the goon squad. It plays all these different courts. This is also one of the reasons I actually wanted to play the deck, is not only do I want to play Marchesa, I want to play all these different courts just because they're on flavor. Yeah. And a commander I saw last weekend that actually made me really interested in playing her and possibly building her is Deanna Wildmage. This is a D&D commander that lets you, whenever she attacks, you can target a creature and roll a d20, and you can basically copy it. So you're guaranteed to get at least one copy of it, and it exiles itself at the beginning of its next end step. So currently what I'm kind of looking through as I go through the deck is I'm kind of picking out stuff that like either whenever it, enters or leaves, like this thing here, just get a little value. Same thing with Solemn. Combustible Gearhulk or Fanatic of the Mages to do damage. Some people that let you mess with dice rolls, like this guy here. Will Blade of Frontiers, and I think there's an enchantment as well that I added to the deck. Yeah, Barbarian class. These kind of let you manipulate rolls so you can get some funny shenanigans going on with Delina here. So this would be my mono red deck. I actually don't have a mono red deck. Red is the color I have the least representation of. I currently have 3 decks that have red in it. Actually, maybe green is, because I only have 2 green decks, because this is only a 3 color deck. Actually, no, I do have 3 green decks. So green and red are tied for least representation right now in my current repertoire. So I might make, and I already have a mono green deck, so I think I might make a mono red deck. But this is one I've been working on ever since I saw him spoiled. Come in the upcoming set, this Lazov, Wearer of Faces, another Dimir deck. But it's whenever it attacks, exile a card from a graveyard, then investigate. Whenever you sack a clue, he may become a copy of a creature card exiled with it until end of turn. Kind of alright, but I kind of just wanted to use this as an excuse, like play him as a fun card, but then just kind of fill the rest of the deck with like fun reanimator shenanigans and do like a reanimator deck, because that's one of the not archetypes I don't have a good, like, don't have a deck for. Also, I was gonna build this out of there's a upcoming precon, a blue-black precon. There's a lot of spicy reanimator cards, so if Lazov doesn't end up being the commander, I just really like the way this card looks. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't think it's great. The ability doesn't even necessarily wow me. I just love the way this card works. That makes me want to stick it in the command zone. I'm trying to do more of that this year, trying to do more fun stuff than maybe trying to optimize as much, although I do enjoy optimizing, so there's nothing wrong with that. But the deck comes with a lot of sweet stuff to get you on your way to a reanimator deck, so maybe even I'll use the face commander and just have Lazov in the deck somewhere. There's also a couple decks in my collection that I really want to work on this year. Veyron obviously still needs a little bit of tinkering, as it's a new deck, and so is the lands deck. Both of them being new decks, they're going to need tinkering. But the main thing I want to work on this year is I really want to try to get fairies to a spot I'm comfortable with, because this is the list that I was super excited to build, and then I just kind of fell off with it. Just kind of didn't really keep it up, didn't really ever like work out all the kinks. To be fair, that's partially because I kind of want to follow the restriction that all the creatures I play are fairies. But, as they go. And there's 2 more decks. I think Zethi is another deck I want to take a really good look at this year, improving. It's a deck that I've had for a while and just kind of like never got it to a super good state that I was happy with. It's always just felt kind of like not as smooth as I would like it to be. So that's a deck that's going to get some work this year, is that one. Yuriko also needs some optimizing. Yuriko being one of my cheaper decks, or being my my all paper, no proxies decks. But I've got some ideas with how I can mess with this deck a little bit and get it into a better state. And I think that's all. Glissa's still also under review. This is a deck that I just recently swapped about 11 cards in. All these down here, 9 cards actually. So I'm testing out swapping out the ramp for a little bit actually better ramp, but not necessarily on theme ramp. Some more powerful cards like Necropotence and cleaner combo lines with stuff like Witherbloom Apprentice and Chain of Smog. The deck is already kind of a grindy control deck, so I kind of want to have another way to end the game, because this is kind of the problem with this deck, I find, is that it either does nothing or it produces a 2.5 hour game. And it's because the deck is powerful, but the deck is powerful control-y, not necessarily pushing towards its win con all the time. So added some more tutors like Beseech the Mirror to try to get to the combos quicker. Nature's Claim ran into a million times the fact that I can't get rid of artifact removal sometimes, because my previous artifact interaction was like Haywire Might, and it's not here anymore, but another artifact creature. So it's like that stuff just got turned off by it. So I added the Nature's Claim. So now I have the Nature's Claim, the Beast Within, the Assassin's Trophy, the Besage You, and all the tutors that can find them if I need to, for artifact and enchantment removal that would normally prevent me from playing the game. So this is a deck that needs some reps, but it's getting there. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little bit of a rambly video today. We'll be back with more Guild Wars tomorrow. If for some reason you like both of these and are watching both, hi people. But if you aren't, I will be doing more Magic stuff, probably something later on this weekend, where I go over my Veyron deck and some of the changes I'm going to make. Either that or next week, because I should be getting most of the cards for it next week. So just a little recap for my goals this year is I want to make more decks in styles I don't have. So I made a lands deck already this year, and Reanimator is probably going to be somewhere on the list. I want to work on some of my less loved decks a little bit, trying to smooth them out a little bit. Fairy, Glissa, Zethi, and Yuriko being the 4 that I really kind of want to focus on tuning a little bit this year. Brawl actually is also probably going to get some work this year. This was my first deck, and it's filled with a lot of my favorite cards and a lot of like stuff, but I think I'm gonna blast it a little bit blast some of these cards apart and kind of either fully commit to running maybe 1 or 2 more combo lines, or power it way back and go with a much slower control win condition with stuff like Tauren. This Alendra is also a little suspect. She might be getting her own deck at some point. I have her. I like her, but she's just not great in this deck, so she might be getting her own deck at some point. But yeah, that's it for my goals this year. More different decks, and mess around with some of my lesser played decks. And tell me what your goals are for the year. And I hope you have a great day. I hope to see you in the next Magic video. Bye-bye.